Blake is originally from Nebraska and graduated college 2 years ago, where he was a pole vaulter on the track team. In college, he was involved in Bible studies, a fraternity, and mission trips every year with Christ in the City. Nowadays, Blake is a missionary with Christ in the City out in Denver, Colorado. Christ in the City is an organization of college-aged missionaries who go to the streets and encounter the poorest of the poor and homeless. Blake's hobbies include all types of playing and watching sports, like Nebraska Husker football, spike ball, frisbee, hiking, and skiing, as well as bonfires, board games, road trips, superhero movies, talking about Nebraska, drinking coffee and Dr. Pepper, and spreading the gospel through the joy of living life. His favorite saints are St. Teresa of Calcutta, Pope St. John Paul II, St. Monica, and St. Joseph. And his favorite Bible verse is Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 34. Please join me in welcoming Blake to the stage.
All right, let's begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Mary, we come to you remembering how much you love us, and even more how much you love those we care about, how much you love those who are hurting, and that you love them more than we ever could. With this in mind, we ask for your intercession as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hello, everyone. Like he said, my name is Blake, and I'm a missionary with Christ in the City in Denver, Colorado. I'm from Nebraska, so you can imagine all the funny things that I've realized by coming to the East Coast and being in Connecticut. I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, so, the only thing I know about Nebraska is corn. Do you live in a cornfield? And sadly, the answer is yes, and neither of my parents are farmers. So it's pretty stereotypical, but it's been great to be out here, and thank you for having me. A lot of you may wonder, what is Christ in the City? I wonder that too sometimes. But what we are is we're a missionary program that goes to the streets of Denver, Colorado. And what we do is we encounter the chronically homeless. The chronically homeless are a little bit different than the homeless you think of who go to a homeless shelter or those who, seek to get off the streets quickly. The chronically homeless are the poorest of the poor. Those are the poorest of the poor among us that Jesus talked about. They're also, another name for them is the service resistant. So where most homeless people are like, 20% addiction or alcoholism and stuff like that, the people we work with is like 90 to 100. So we go and find those who have given up hope on life, and you can imagine the pain and the suffering we encounter regularly. I think it's really important to start with how I ended up at Christ in the City. When I was a sophomore in college, I got in trouble for drinking in my dorm, and it was super inconvenient. I was on the track team, I was a pole vaulter, and it was during the spring, and I had a ton of community service hours I needed to get. And I was like, man, I was a pre-med major, I was trying to get my resume boosted for med school, and I was just thinking to myself, like, how can I pull off these community service hours in the busiest time of my college career? And then I heard about a mission trip to Denver for Christ in the City, and I was like, there it is. There's the answer. It was cheap. It was under $200 for me to get from Nebraska to Denver. It would look great on my resume. We were always worried about our resumes, and I was like, oh man, this is just going to be perfect. I spend my spring break reaching out to the homeless. And not only that, I would get a ton of community service hours, which at the moment was the biggest thing. And I had a good friend, his name was Austin, and we went on this trip together. And secretly, we both were like, we need to do this for our faith. But I will be totally honest, that was not our main reason for going. And that is crazy because God works with us no matter where we are. And maybe you're here today for that same reason. Maybe you didn't want to be here like I didn't want to go on that mission trip. And maybe God has a plan for your heart as well. So when I showed up at Christ in the City, I had this idea that I would go and just change the homeless lives. I was like, man, I can give them a meal. I can give them some clothes. I can just talk to them and tell them, you know what? God loves you. I love you. I'm here right now. and then boom, they're off the streets. I truly believe that.
It's 10 hours.
Because that's what we thought, that's what you really think of when you go to help somebody. You go on a mission trip and you think, I can build this person a house and solve all their problems. I can build this person a stove and solve all their problems. And immediately, the moment I got to the streets, that was not the case at all. There was absolutely nothing I could do to get these homeless people off the streets. If they needed a meal, if they were just hungry, they would have been off the streets a long time ago. If all they needed was a job or money, there's a lot of jobs out there. They could have been off the streets long ago. They had access to almost anything they could need if they wanted it, but they were still homeless, which made me question, why the heck am I here? If I can't give them a meal to get them off the streets, if I can't, give them some clothes, like clothe the naked and get them off the streets, like, what am I doing here? And that leads to the next point. The homeless in America, the poor in America, aren't really materially poor. If you think of maybe the poorest person you know, they have access to so much more here in our country than they do in third world countries. This poverty in America is not really a poverty of material things at all. And what it was is this poverty of loneliness. This poverty of loneliness that the homeless were going through is nothing that you can meet with a meal. It's nothing you can take care of by just helping them get off the streets or find a job. This problem of loneliness is greater than the homeless. And as I was talking to someone, I started to see this loneliness in myself. The loneliness in the homeless, I saw in me. And these homeless, they weren't hurting for food. There's a joke in Denver that the homeless will tell you, if you go hungry, you're stupid, because there's so many meals for the homeless there. But this loneliness that they were encountering, I saw in me. And I saw it, and it hurt a lot. The homeless they were broken, hurting, and lonely, and so was I. The only difference, though, was my brokenness, my loneliness, wasn't as visible as theirs. Right? What we feel inside this brokenness doesn't really manifest itself in our outward appearance. But with the homeless, it's very clear. St. Teresa of Calcutta has a quote from one of her visits to the United States. And this was her opinion of what she saw in America. The greatest disease in the West today is not tuberculosis or leprosy. It is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. There are many in the world who are dying for a piece of bread, but there are many more dying for a little love. The poverty in the West is a different kind of poverty. It is not only a poverty of loneliness, but also of spirituality. There's a hunger for love, as there is a hunger for God. I found this loneliness in the homeless, and found the loneliness hidden in myself as well. And then I started to look around me, and it was in my friends. It was in my family. It was in those people I went to college with, those on my track team, the closest ones in my life, who I thought had everything, all the material things they could want to be happy. And they were just as lonely as the homeless people that I encountered on my mission trip. And what I realized is there's nothing I can do for the homeless. Materially, I can do nothing for them. Nothing I can say to get them off the streets. Nothing I could do to ease the pain. But really, as missionaries of Christ in the city, we don't go to perform acts or works for the homeless. We don't go to feed them and clothe them, because there's truly no act we can do to get them off the streets. That doesn't mean we don't want them off the streets, but you realize very quickly you can't do anything. The problem isn't a lack of things, and that's why we can't do anything. It's a lack of love. It's a problem of loneliness, of hurt, of feeling invisible. The real answer to their poverty we found at Christ in the City, and we find this in the church as well, is given to us by Mary, actually. Mary at the foot of the cross. When Jesus is hanging there in his darkest hour, he is suffering. Imagine a loved one in your life just hurting so much. Maybe it's your best friend, your sibling, your parents. Mary could do nothing to ease Jesus' pain. She couldn't say anything. There was nothing she could give him. There was nothing she could do. The only thing she could do was truly be there with Jesus. Not distracted with those around her. I mean, she could have left, and technically nothing would have changed because Jesus was still hanging there. But the thing is her presence. Her presence was the reason that she stayed there and that Jesus felt comfort from her, from his mother at that loneliest hour. And that's why I came back to Christ in the City. Because originally I went with such impure intentions. And I think we all do that. Maybe even some of you today came here and still don't know why you're here. That's okay. I went to Christ in the City for community service hours. And 2 years later, I'm standing in front of you in Connecticut. Small town kid from Nebraska. And through Christ in the City, I realized this loneliness that I saw in others, this loneliness I saw in myself, I had to answer to. I had to answer to it because these people are hurting. Your friends around you are hurting. Those to your left and right are probably hurting right now. And they're not hurting materially. You don't see anyone, dying of hunger today. But what you see is this loneliness that's hidden once you start taking back a few layers. The loneliness I found in the homeless was real, and it was real in me as well, like I said earlier. But one thing that we don't talk about is how much it hurts to look at. I have some homeless friends who, this guy is a character, and he comes up to me one day, he goes, "Blake, I'm so mad at all these Christians." And I was like, "What's going on, man?" And he's like, "Listen, every single person who passes by me today, they'd probably tell you they're a Christian." He's like, "But they won't look at me." And I was like, "Oh man, no way is that true. Like, I'm here looking at you, they'll look at you too." And he's like, "Oh yeah?" So he just starts going crazy, just like throwing his arms in the air, screaming, hollering. And not a single person who walks by looked at him. They all acknowledged him because they got little smirks on their face. One of them walked by and just like, kind of funny. They purposely tried to avoid him. But when we look at people's loneliness, we have to do something about it. Because as a good human being, we can't just allow that to be there. St. Teresa of Calcutta has another great quote, and she says, "Loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty." That's pretty radical. She's not saying hunger. She's saying dying of hunger is better than this loneliness of poverty. Wow. That is not how we look at the world. We all have this feeling of loneliness, though, which is crazy because that means it needs to be a priority compared to, everything else. This meeting, this loneliness in people, that's our biggest goal. We want to be known for who we truly are, but let's be honest, we're all scared. Scared that if the people next to us, if our best friends found out who we truly were, what our inner thoughts were, they wouldn't like us. They wouldn't not only like us, but they wouldn't even want to talk to us anymore. We're so scared that we hide ourselves from our very best friends. We post on Instagram and Facebook and put our worth in how many likes we have. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly comparing myself to other people, whether I know it or not. It's like I get on Facebook and Instagram, and before I know it, I'm like, wow, that's a way better picture than me. Maybe I could do something to, get a picture similar. When we compare, though, we just feel like crap. I don't know about you, but I've had that so many times. You get on Facebook, you get on Instagram, and you get in with a good, pure intention, and then you just feel like, man, my life is not as cool as theirs. The thing is, though, is that person we put on social media isn't our real self. I have a great story for you of when I was on street ministry one day. And there was a little background. There was hundreds of college students for the NCAA Division II finals in Denver for all sorts of sports. Soccer, softball, maybe lacrosse. There's a bunch of different ones. And as we were standing there in the street talking to one of our good homeless friends, who, by the way, graduated college with a degree in philosophy. So this guy's no dummy. He is, I talk to him and I learn something new from him every day. Well, while we're there, sitting there talking to Brad, there's this group of girls, and I'm not picking on the girls, the guys do it too, and they took 30 minutes to take a picture on the mall in the attempt to get the perfect picture for their social media. And we sat there watching them the whole time. Not like in a creepy way, Brad and we were having a great conversation with Brad, but they were just there. And there was hundreds of people passing by. They were moving locations on the mall. They were walking around, passing by homeless people, and they were so caught up in getting this perfect picture to put on social media, they didn't even see the homeless. They didn't even see the hurting around them. They spent 30 minutes of their lives truly trying to get the perfect picture. But when they put that on Instagram, it's not going to say, hey everyone, took half an hour to get this picture, hope you like it. You know? We waste so much time trying to impress others that it is actually draining. You know, sometimes you don't even want to post on Instagram because it takes too much thought, because we have to try to see what everyone's going to like. We put our worth in these pictures, and not only our worth in the pictures, but how many likes they receive. I mean, I do the same thing, and it hurts, it's disgusting, you know? There will always be someone in our lives, though, who can have that better picture. And that's why comparison is the thief of our joy. We only put our best on social media, so we sit there when we're feeling down, and then compare ourselves with others' best in life, because that's what we do to reach out. When we use social media as a measure of our worth, though, it only is going to make you feel more lonely and disconnected. Andre did a great job of talking about that yesterday. This isn't just with social media, though. We try and put our trust and our worth in our parents, in our best friends, in our families, in our possessions. And the thing is we are going to get hurt when we put our trust in those things. But did you hear what I just said? Your families, your parents, your best friends, like when you put your worth in them, you will get hurt. Because there's things that they can't provide for you. There's things my best friends and family can't provide for me. Everyone in your life, little breaker here, everyone in your life is going to let you down at some point. Think of your best friend. They're going to let you down. Think of your parent. They're going to let you down. The possessions in your life, they're all going to let you down. But then the crazy thing is we look at this sin in ourselves, and then we let people down, and we're disappointed. We're so disappointed we let it just ruin us, and we don't ever talk to the people again who let us down, or we just, gossip about them or try to hide from them, when in reality, we can't fight it. We're all sinners. And that's something I think that it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget in our country. It's, the homeless, they're the sinners. The poorest of the poor, who you can see externally, those are the sinners. But in reality, we are all sinners, but this doesn't define us. It isn't hard to see the sin in the world, especially when you go and, see the homeless, or maybe you guys go to the city and you see people begging for money or people on drugs. That's easy. That sin's easy to see. But the thing is sin isn't just an external thing. It's a rupture with our relationship with God. As missionaries, we see this sin in all different forms. And all this sin is the reason for this loneliness. On the streets, it's real. We have friends who get so drunk just to go to detox so they don't have to think about the problems in their life. I've known friends who have been sex trafficked and were in abusive relationships and came to us and didn't know how to get out of them. Just desperate, almost giving up total hope in life. We've met prostitutes and seen the pain in their eyes, the true visible pain that you can see by just looking someone in the face. We see people tripping on meth and drugs and not even knowing who they are or where they are, or telling you, I don't know where I woke up, I don't know where I came from. We knew a woman who passed away and had no idea where her family or friends were. Didn't know where any of them were, and we didn't know who her family or friends were either. We've had others who have such a hard life, and they've had so many broken relationships, they don't even know how to have friendships anymore. The only friendships they know that they call friendships are those where they use each other and take advantage of each other. There's so many wounds and hard lives that we encounter that they have to lie to themselves that they actually enjoy being on the streets. Because for them to be homeless, they at least get to search each day only for food and drink and shelter, so they don't have to worry about, the past or looking forward to the future. But this isn't just limited to the homeless. You think we only work with the homeless, but it's not even the start of it. We have a ton of friends who live in apartments, who are married. We have people who come around who really have never been homeless in their lives, but they are so lonely, they have no friends. They have no family. Some of the people say we're the only ones who talk to them regularly, and they go out of their way to talk to us. But why is this loneliness, this sadness, this brokenness, why is it present in America where we have all the material things we can want? And if you don't have them, well, you can just work a little harder and solve this poverty inside of you. And the reason is because this loneliness isn't caused by a lack of people in our lives, believe it or not. It's actually caused by our broken relationship with God. Each and every one of us, whether it's someone else's sin that makes you lonely, all this is caused by our broken relationship with God. Loneliness is a lost connection with others, just like Adam and Eve. And I don't know about you, but I get sick of hearing about Adam and Eve from time to time. Because it seems like this far distant off garden that I can't even imagine. Like, come on, the fruit can't be that good. And you think about it, and we just look at Adam and Eve and like, yeah, that's them, and we suffer the consequences. But rarely, even when I was writing this talk, I was like, I don't remember that Adam and Eve's story is a story of myself. Rarely do we apply this to our own lives. But let's look at what actually happens. So Adam and Eve don't trust God. That's clear. It's everyone like, okay, the basics, yeah, they don't trust God, they eat the apple. Come on, what else you want me to know? They don't fully believe what God promises them. And when we look at what that means, Adam and Eve fell prey to pride and power. They fell prey to not trusting God. And then you look at yourself, and we do that all the time, almost every single day. Then after Adam and Eve sin, what's their first response? They hide. They hide from God. They hide from themselves. They separate themselves from God and become lonely. But the thing is they didn't become lonely on purpose. We don't ever choose to be lonely. It's what happens when Adam and Eve hid and they weren't honest with God. This loneliness happened. They think God will not like them anymore or notice them, and then they kind of just spiral down. They went from just not trusting God to then thinking God doesn't even love them anymore. He can't even relate to them. But God proves this isn't the case and actually searched for them. Right? So if I said this is going to apply to our lives as well, we've all been there. We sin. We don't think we're worthy of forgiveness. And then we hide. But the other thing we also forget is that God has been looking for us this entire time. But when we sin, we feel embarrassed, ashamed, and try to hide it. And not only do we hide from God, but we hide from our parents. We hide from those we hurt, and more importantly, God. The reality is, though, just like Adam and Eve, we actually can't hide, no matter how hard we try. Like Andre was talking about yesterday, you have to let it all out in this sense of you cannot keep these things in. You can't keep them in and get any healing. To feel not lonely anymore, like Andre said, we have to let it all out and then let God let this reconciliation into our hearts. God is always there, though, and we can hide our faces or not look at him, but that really doesn't change. It's like I just picture Adam and Eve hiding in a bush. I don't know why, but I just think of a bush they're hiding in. It's like, oh, God can't see me here. Little did they know God created that bush. It's part of who he is. And we try to hide, and we still can't even hide from who we're hiding from. And it's crazy because most of the time that's ourselves. We try to hide from ourselves, but then we remember we are ourselves. It just doesn't make any sense at all. But that sin doesn't allow us to see this. God's desire for your heart, for your love, is greater than this sin. Like the theme of the conference, I'm with you always. Do we believe it? Like Adam and Eve, this means if God's with us always, in both the good times and the bad. Because Adam and Eve sinned, God didn't run away. No, he went looking for them. Before that, we never hear of God looking for Adam and Eve. When does he start looking for them? When does he actually start walking towards them? When they sin. There's no reason to be ashamed and hide. Embarrassment, feeling alone, that's normal. It's normal to feel like God will never forgive us because that's part of our brokenness. Adam and Eve thought the same thing, so you're never alone. The most interesting part, though, is not only do we struggle with God forgiving us, even more we struggle forgiving ourselves. Because, like I said earlier, we think we're striving for perfection in the wrong way. We think that if we don't ever let anyone down, we're perfect. But then when we do sin and let someone down, even ourselves down, we hate ourselves. We feel like crap. Most of us believe we aren't worthy of this forgiveness and love. But there were many saints who also believed they weren't worthy of forgiveness. I don't know if you knew this, but St. Augustine had a kid out of marriage. King David committed adultery, and the woman he committed adultery with, he killed her husband because he needed to cover it up. St. Mary of Egypt was a prostitute, and St. Dismas was a thief. There's not a single saint who wasn't a sinner. And a lot of these saints that it's so hard for us to imagine being saints, but a lot of them were in a way worse and darker spot and lonelier spot than we were. And after this sin, we can choose loneliness when we don't seek confession or repentance. But when we don't ask for forgiveness from others, we become lonelier. The only difference between the saints and those who continue to sin is the belief that the saints were worthy of God's forgiveness and quit hiding from his love. Thank you.